to start. Okay, for those of you who are tuning in, you missed a huge little bonus on Facebook Live. So I want to encourage you to go to facebook.com/Lillian's radio show, and it's on Mercury. So I want to encourage you to go to Lillian's radio show. But today we're talking with Dr. Joe Pizzorno, Dr. Joseph Pizzorno. He is the author of the Toxin Solution. So today, he's been on the show twice before, and we have talked about the Toxin Solution. So much information in here, and we're going to dive into it one more time several years later. So today, if you're watching on YouTube or listening later on podcasts, I don't even know if they'll be able to hear this portion of it, but I want to always encourage you to go to the live audience on Facebook.com/Lillian's radio show. So today, fasten your seatbelts because we're going to learn about lead, arsenic, and fluoride. And if you tune in a little later or earlier and watch Facebook, you'll get a little bonus on Mercury as well. So here we go.
The Lillian McDermott Show.
We love, we fear, bridges we burn, we make mistakes, then we live and learn. When life gets tough, and it seems like your best ain't good enough. If you're in need of hope, you know where I'll be right here, right here. And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here, waiting for you.
This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Hello, my listening and viewing friends. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful, best day ever. And for those of you who have been tuning in to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show Classroom since 2011, or maybe you tuned in yesterday for the first time, please know I am very grateful for you. But if this is the first time that someone said, hey, join us. We're going to be talking about toxins with Dr. Joe Pizzorno on the Lillian McDermott Radio Show Classroom. Come join us. Be a student today. Please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friends, live on Facebook at Lillian's Radio Show, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. There are so many times that we do things, but we don't even know that we're doing it. Other times, we do things that we're told are safe to do, but they're not. And we don't know that we're doing it. So the best way that we can help ourselves or heal our bodies is to become informed, educated. Information, power of information. Then you can make the choice that's best for you. Sometimes we have incorrect information. And it's wonderful when we have teachers like Dr. Joe Pizzorno that come on the classroom to help us understand this new truth about perhaps lead, arsenic, and fluoride. I got it right this time. So this is the book that we've talked about in the past. It's called the Toxin Solution. Listen to this byproduct here, this tagline: how hidden poisons in the air, water, food, and products we use are destroying our health and what we can do to fix it. This is the book that I absolutely love. We've given it away in the past. We've done 2 class sessions. So you can go to YouTube or Facebook and be able to, I don't know, go to whenyouneedafriend.com anyway to get a copy of the show that we did back in 2017. So today I want you guys to start thinking about different symptoms that you might be experiencing that your doctors say you're fine, you're doing well, but yet you know there's something, you don't know what. So today we're going to talk to the author, Dr. Joseph Pizzorno, Dr. Joe Pizzorno, ND, and we are going to talk about different things that could be in your body, products, animal, toxins in your body that could be causing symptoms or an illness that you have even a diagnosis for. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that Dr. Joe Pizzorno is here from his very, very busy life to share and be the greatest teacher ever. Thank you so much, Dr. Pizzorno, for being here.
Great to be with you again, Lily. Thank you.
Yeah, so let's get started. How did you get involved with toxins as a naturopathic doctor? How did you get involved with toxins?
Well, as a naturopathic doctor, of course, I've always been aware of the importance of toxins, or I should say the importance of avoiding toxins to be healthy. As a naturopathic doctor, I basically believe is the body has a tremendous ability to heal, and our job is to help the body heal, and what we call remove the blockages to healing, remove the barriers to healing. And those barriers are almost always nutritional defects or deficiencies or environmental toxins. So I've always been aware of it, and I've always treated my patients for decades with detoxification. But then about 10 years ago, one of the wealthiest men in Canada invited me to come up to Canada to do a wellness program for his employees. So he grabbed my attention by sending his personal Learjet down to Seattle to pick me up. So I go up there, I start talking to him, and he says, okay, so now what do you want to do to improve the health of my employees? Now his employees were oil field workers.
Ooh.
I said, well, I like to be objective about this. I want to assess nutritional status, I want to assess their toxic status, and I want to do some assessment of metabolic function. And I said, how much can I spend? And his response was blank check. I said, really? He said, if you can convince me we should run that test, I will run it on my employees. So I ran $1,500 worth of lab tests on 4,500 oil field workers. You know, obviously a lot of money. I got a lot of great data. As I was looking at the data, there were two things that really jumped out. Number one, less than 1% of the people were not deficient in at least one nutrient. And most people in that measure were deficient in multiple nutrients. The other thing I saw was a lot of signs of toxicity. Now, the one at that point we were most aware of was mercury, but once I started looking at that data on mercury, I then started looking more deeply. I started looking at, well, how about not just mercury, let's look at lead, let's look at arsenic, let's look at cadmium. I started looking at the research starting about 10 years ago. I was stunned by how much I found. And now, I'm now lecturing literally all over the world that environmental toxins have become the primary drivers of chronic disease. So just in the last, actually 10 months, I've lectured in Auckland, New Zealand, Sydney, Australia, London, UK, and I just got back last weekend from lecturing in Moscow, Russia.
Wow.
I'm talking to doctors literally all over the world saying, here is the research. And I just wrote an editorial for my journal, IMCJ, where I'm suggesting that we need to change the standard of care that we assess every patient for their toxic load. So just like we do a CBC to see if a person has infections or hemoglobin to see if they're anemic, we should be testing them for toxins as well. And I said the first two we should test for are lead and arsenic. Now, a lot of other bad ones, but those look like the worst.
So you're seeing that more in people as you're doing this research, as you're now aware that you can find these toxins in the body by doing some testing, you're saying that those are the two culprits.
Well, I'm saying those are the worst. I want to be very clear, they're not the only ones.
Oh,
So,
yes. But
you know, as is usual, when I went to give my lecture in Moscow, I always, of course, then look what's the latest research. And I found two papers that were just stunning. Paper number one was on lead. And what these researchers did, they tried to determine what percent of all-cause mortality is due to lead, and also what percent of cardiac mortality is due to lead. Okay, logical thing to check for. What they found that was stunning was that 18% of all-cause mortality is due to lead. Okay, So 1 out of 5 people die.
18% of all-cause mortality. 18%.
So it's like 1 out of 6 people dies because of lead toxicity. And then they also found that 1/3 of deaths from heart attacks was due to lead. I thought, wow, that's a stunning number. We're always checking people's cholesterol levels. Maybe we should be checking their lead levels and looking at cardiovascular disease. That one really grabbed my attention because it was a big study published in a prestigious journal, really strong. The next study I saw was on arsenic. They're looking at what percent of common cancers are due to arsenic. Prostate cancer, pancreatic cancer, lung cancer. What they found was stunning. They found that 1/4 to 1/3 of all major cancers are due to arsenic. And I said, wait a minute, arsenic, is that a problem? So it turns out 10% of the public water supplies in the United States that have been tested have elevated levels of arsenic. When you look at the cutoff for increasing risk of cancer due to arsenic, 1/3 of the population is above the cutoff for arsenic causing cancer. So the numbers are just stunning.
Well, you have in your book, and I had picked up, because it's been a while since I picked up this book, and I knew I had to study again. So this book right here has the disease and the levels that you're finding. There is a correlation between these. And so what you're saying is scary, but
Yes.
at the same time, it's hopeful, because if we can use this as a prevention, we could avoid some of these other diseases.
Absolutely. I think that's a key point. So if somebody has a disease, chronic disease, rheumatoid arthritis, cancer, diabetes, go to the appendix in my book, see which are the toxins that cause it the most, assess your levels in your body, and if they're elevated, get rid of those toxins.
Brilliant.
What's kind of fun is, since my book has been out now for about 2 years, I'm now getting letters from people who read my book, follow my protocols, and now tell me what happened. And I'm getting all these great letters from people where they have their diseases reversing.
Amazing. So let's start with lead. Let's start with lead, because you started with lead and then we moved to arsenic, but there's so much I want to dig in deeper, because you know I will. So with lead, where can we find lead? Because I was looking at like the preliminary, like toys and dust and chips from the wall chips and candy. Who puts lead in their candy?
Right. So there's good news and bad news. Okay, the good news is that about 40 years ago, we decided lead was a public health problem and got out of gasoline and out of many of the products that we use, like paint, things like that. So the good news is that if you look at people's average blood levels, they've dropped about 3/4 in the last 40 years. That's
Yeah.
good. Okay. Now, the bad news is that what was considered safe levels of lead in the past is now known to be really, really wrong, and that we're way more susceptible to lead damage than we had realized. But what's also of interest is that even though the general population levels of lead have gone down, if you look at when do people tend to get most of the disease, most in their 50s and 60s, when men go through andropause, women go through menopause. And what typically happens to people when they go through andropause and menopause? They start losing bone because osteoporosis is so common. And where is most of the lead stored in the body? It's stored in the bone.
Yes, I learned that from you before.
Yes. If you look at a perimenopausal woman as she goes through menopause, her blood levels of lead go up 40%. So just at the time where we're now older, we accumulated damage to our body, the DNA has been damaged, now we dump all this lead in, and all of a sudden we start to die. We start having heart attacks. All these bad things start to happen. So lead is a real significant issue, and there is no safe level of lead in the population. Right now, the CDC says that people should not worry about lead levels below 10 micrograms per deciliter of blood. So 10 milligrams per 1/10 of a liter of blood. Well, it turns out people with 5 micrograms per deciliter of blood within the supposed normal range have more higher blood pressure, more heart disease, and children have a lower IQ because lead is really toxic to their brains. So even that so-called safe level, lots of toxicity, well documented.
Wow. And so I had talked about really quickly toys, dust chips from old paint, candy. So how do we know? What else contains lead? What else do we need to avoid?
So I think you identified the ones very well. Now, there's a couple of areas where people have higher lead exposure. So, for example, do you live near an airport that has private planes? Because while lead has been removed from regular gasoline, it has not been removed from the high octane gasoline used in airplanes.
Whoa.
So if you're near an airport with small planes, those small planes are spewing lead into the air. So you look at the area around a small airport, and you'll find there's higher levels of lead there. I would look for near incinerators, for example, where you're downwind from incinerators, lead's one of the toxins that comes up. So the good news is that most of the products we use today are going to be more careful about their lead levels. Unfortunately, paint in an older house have lead in it. If you have an older house that used a copper pipe before about 1983, that copper pipe was soldered with lead, had lead in it. And so if for any reason the water supply becomes acidic and corrosive, like what happened in Flint, Michigan, it'll put lead into the water supply.
Wow.
But I would say right now, most people who are in their high disease levels of age, it's actually mainly come from their bones.
So we consume, without us knowing, we have lead in our, we've had candy. How do you know it doesn't have lead? How do you test it before you have candy? Well, we shouldn't have candy anyway. So this is a great deterrent.
Well, first off, make sure it's not coming from China.
Okay, so China.
It's going to have lead and it's going to have mercury in it.
Yeah. So China's trying to kill us. So Here we go. So
you kind of wonder. 55% of the mercury released into the environment comes from China. So
50%?
55%.
55
yes.
Of lead?
So you buy an herbal medicine from China, you better make sure it's been tested for lead, because herbal medicines from China are often contaminated with lead.
Even if it's organic?
It's in the air. It's everywhere.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm not saying don't use Chinese herbal medicine products.
Test it.
A lot of those herbs are really good. Make sure they're tested.
Okay, so how do you know? Because we can't trust anybody to do it for us. So how can we take it into our own hands and take that responsibility?
So if you want to, you can actually test it yourself. So a lab I use is Doctor's Data in Chicago. So a friend of mine, Dr. Stephen Martinez, in Melbourne, Australia, had a patient with high mercury levels, could not figure out where the mercury was coming from, and finally determined that he was using a Chinese herbal medicine product. We sent it to the lab, and his daily dose of the Chinese herbal medicine product was the same as eating a small tuna steak every day. So it's like all this, it's just terrible. All this mercury is coming in.
Wow. So you switch to mercury, but...
Sorry, I'm just giving you an example.
Just give me an example of that. Okay. Test. So, but you can test lead how? Yeah,
Doctor's Data. You have a product.
Doctor's Data. I didn't hear the data. Okay.
Yeah, send the Doctor's Data. They'll test it for you.
Okay.
Now, dietary supplements.
How can I test for myself, like in my body, that if I have too much lead?
So, lead is one of those studies you can do in your blood or your urine, and it'll tell you your current exposure. The problem with that, it doesn't tell you what's in your bones. So some people do what's called challenge testing with products like DMSA to determine how much is in the bone. That's very, very controversial. So at this point, blood levels are checked. If it's above 5 micrograms per deciliter of blood, you got too much lead.
Too much lead. Okay. So some of the things that we need to be aware of, how do we get you said that once it goes into the bones, that's it. But how do we get it out of our body? Can we get it? Can we do chelation? What can we do?
So the number of strategies you can use to get lead down. You can use kind of natural products, or you can use, might say, relatively safe drugs. So if somebody has high lead levels, I will treat them with oral products, oral EDTA and oral DMSA. So I use relatively small dosages, but for a long period of time, so we can get it out. Because the body's constantly excreting the stuff into the gut. And because we tend to have a diet that's too low in fiber, where the body's put all this energy to get into the gut, there's no fiber there, you just reabsorb something called intrahepatic recirculation. So giving people fiber, oral EDTA, oral DMSA, all those things will bind to the lead in the gut and get it out through the stools.
Very nice. And can you test your stool, see if it's coming out or what?
You can do that. What I say, just measure your blood, because dealing with the stools is kind of messy.
That's true. That's true. Okay. So that will remove it. Will it remove it from the bone as well?
So as the body's trying to get rid of it, and you're getting your blood levels down, then it makes it easier for the lead to diffuse from the bone into the blood. And also, don't lose your bone when you get older. Bones when you get older. So one study was done looking at women who were using hormone replacement therapy, so they weren't losing their bones, their lead levels didn't go up. So keep healthy bones, which means vitamin D, calcium, and vitamin K2. The three most important nutrients for the bones. Many others are important as well, but those three will help you keep your bones.
Now
one by itself, you have to do all three.
Yeah, with all three, but at the same time?
Yes, all three at the same time.
So D, calcium, and K2.
Right.
Okay.
And I prefer the MK7 version of K2, about 125 micrograms per day. That one, the dosage and the form is actually pretty important.
What is the dosage and the form? Because I've seen the MK.
The form of vitamin K2 that we prefer, well, I say we because my wife is an expert in bone health. I'd invite her to talk to you sometime.
Yeah.
Anyway, so literally we have hundreds of letters from women who've rebuilt their bones by following Laura's bone protocols. Anyway, so the vitamin K2, I prefer the MK7 version, 125 micrograms per day, not milligrams.
250?
125 micrograms per day.
Micrograms per day.
That's what I typically recommend.
And what about D and calcium?
So D is usually about 4,000 IUs per day, but the only way to be sure is by measuring a person's vitamin D levels. And calcium should be about 1,500 milligrams a day, and you need to take about 750 milligrams of magnesium as well.
750 magnesium.
Typically 2-to-1 calcium to magnesium.
So so the magnesium and the calcium need to be taken, or all of it needs to be taken at the same time.
You really should take them all. Well, same time, same day kind of thing. You need all those nutrients. They don't have to be the same, popping the pills at the same time, but they have to be in the same day if at all possible.
Very good, very good. And for those of you who are watching on Facebook, Facebook Live at Lillian's radio show, I'm sure you have lots of questions. So make sure you type in a Q and write your question down, and you're welcome. Let us know where you're from, where you're watching, and any thoughts that you might have. Okay, so is there anything else that to say about lead?
So lead, this is how it all works. So in many situations, the way that lead causes trouble is that it replaces minerals like calcium from enzymes. Okay. So one way to protect yourself from these metals is make sure all your minerals and your trace minerals are really at good levels in your body. Because what happens is when the enzymes aren't saturated with the minerals necessary to make the enzymes work, an enzyme is a protein determined by our genetics plus a cofactor with typically a vitamin or mineral. So if you're low in your vitamins and minerals, it means your enzymes are open, so the toxic can bind to the enzymes and poison them. So the higher levels of nutrients, vitamins and minerals, the more resistant you are to these toxins. So not just getting the toxins out, but making it harder for the toxins to cause trouble. Okay,
so while you were talking about that, I thought of one more thing that I wanted to ask. What are the symptoms? Let's say are there any symptoms to having lead toxicity that I can say, okay, I identify with that, I'm going to run to get myself tested?
So that's the problem. Most of these toxins don't produce obvious symptoms. Okay, you're not as healthy as you should be, but I can't say if you have this particular symptom, that means lead. Now, if you have brain fog, okay, that's probably mercury. Okay? But for most of them, there's not an exact symptom. It's that. So what I say to people is, why do you want to wait for symptoms of your body breaking down before you do something about it? Test yourself now. Check your metals. Check your chemicals. And if you have any that are high, get rid of them. Don't wait till they break your body.
Okay, this is so informative. Okay, so then arsenic. There's been this whole, Dr. Joel Furman has been a monthly visitor in the classroom since 2015. And lately, he's been harping on arsenic in rice.
Yes, for good reason. So when I look at the research, I try to say, okay, well, which toxins are showing up the most in disease? Then I look at the CDC and see what does the CDC think? That's the Centers for Disease Control.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was seeing arsenic popping up everywhere. I mean, I've got a whole 90-minute lecture just on arsenic. So I went to the CDC, and sure enough, CDC says arsenic is the #1 toxin. So you might say, okay, now how much disease is it causing? Well, the numbers are scary. Okay. So there was and I said this to you last time, I'll say it again because I think it's really good.
You can repeat anything you want.
Okay. So there was a 20-year prospective study of 20,000 people in Italy. So the reason you like a prospective study is because most studies are retrospective. You say, okay, let's look at people right now and let's see what we can kind of guess what happened in the past and see how it correlates with what's happening now.
Mm-hmm.
But what they did was they test people's arsenic levels now and then followed them for 20 years. And so they followed people who were living in areas that had high levels of arsenic in the water and people had low levels of arsenic in the water and looked what happened over a 20-year period of time. What they found was people with arsenic in higher levels in the water had more heart disease, more diabetes, more strokes, more cancer. Then they said, okay, how much arsenic has to be in the body before you start seeing more of those diseases? And they figure what the number is. Then if you look at the US, we have something called NHANES, where they, every 2 years, to look at what's the level of vitamins in people, what's the level of toxins in people, what's the level of disease in people, and look for correlations. What they found was that 37% of people in the US have arsenic levels above the threshold found in Italy to cause disease in people.
Wow.
Well, are people in Italy genetically different? Well, probably somewhat. But the problem is you look in here in the US and we see all those diseases exactly the same as you see in Italy. Actually, we might see even more diabetes from arsenic than you see in Italy, but it doesn't matter. There's many factors coming together.
Mm-hmm.
So the reality is that water, rice, and chicken are major sources of arsenic.
Wow. Chicken?
Chicken.
It's a good thing I don't eat chicken, but
up until about 3 years ago, the standard of care for chicken that was approved by the USDA was to use arsenical compounds in these chickens to get rid of parasites and to plump them up, make them puffier, more white meat so they would sell better. It's no longer approved, unfortunately still being used.
Okay, so
by some farmers.
Okay, so arsenic. Let's look at arsenic. Is there any? You said mercury gives you some brain fog, but is there any symptom for arsenic?
You know, you can get some. The first thing you see with arsenic tends to be skin lesions. But again, why wait for that to happen?
Sure. But if somebody's having skin lesions and they can't get a doctor to help them heal because they're chowing down on rice with chicken, and what about China? China has a lot of rice. They eat a lot of rice. Do they have high levels of arsenic?
Yes. It's a problem.
What does Dr. McDougall say about this?
Dr. McDougall has done a lot of great work. And actually, my wife, Laura, has actually done some ghostwriting for him around nutrition. And having said that, we continue to learn more research. People didn't really realize the problem with rice until relatively recently. Now we learn more, so we're now getting more careful. So let me be clear, rice does not have to have arsenic in it.
But how do you find out it doesn't have arsenic?
Only buy from manufacturers who have tested for arsenic and can tell you there's no arsenic there. And it doesn't matter whether it's organic or conventionally grown. If there's arsenic in the water, and a lot of water supplies have arsenic in it, the rice will absorb it. For some reason, rice just absorbs arsenic very well. Okay.
So of course we know people can die from arsenic. People, they used to, in the old days, that was their tool to kill people, it's like poison people with arsenic and then they're gone. But nowadays, what diseases are correlated with arsenic?
Yeah, so the big ones are diabetes and cancer. Those are by far the biggest, but there's others that are significant as well. Those ones to go after. Oh, and another one, which is really surprising, is gout.
Gout?
Yeah. Looking at the research, my best estimate right now is that about 50% of gout is due to arsenic. This is one of my biggest surprises. Because actually, I just happened to.
Other than the cat behind you, that's the biggest surprise.
yeah, my kids. They like to be part of our lives.
Yes, he's cute. Okay, so arsenic. How do you get arsenic out of your body?
So here's the good news.
Yes.
So we look at the toxins. We have what are called persistent toxins and non-persistent toxins. So a non-persistent toxin means that we're very good at detoxifying it, and they don't stay in our bodies very long as we're not being exposed. Persistent toxins are very hard to get rid of. They have long half-lives in the body. So, for example, we're looking at, let's say, lead.
Yeah.
Half-life of lead in the blood is like 1 to 2 months. In the bones, it's 2 to 7 years. Okay, so once it gets into our body, it's hard to get rid of. Arsenic, the half-life is only 2 to 4 days, unless you have a genetic polymorphism, which I'll talk about in a minute. So all you have to do with arsenic is stop being exposed. You stop being exposed, your body's going to get healthier.
So I can go back to eating rice, but I have to make sure that it is arsenic tested.
Yes, arsenic tested. And even if it has arsenic, yes, and even if it has some arsenic, just don't eat it very often. Once a week, it won't hurt you.
Okay.
Even if it has arsenic in it. But if there's arsenic in your water supply and you're eating rice every day and you're eating chicken, you are going to have elevated levels of arsenic.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, so you don't eat it, you eliminate it from your diet, and your body gets free from arsenic.
Really easily, yes.
That's a pretty easy peasy. So that one, that's not as, that's something that's like our low hanging fruit.
Yes.
And so again, symptoms when you have high exposure to arsenic, not that much.
Mainly skin lesions.
That's it.
It's mainly the early ones.
Or death if you've been poisoned by
if you've been poisoned, but that one's easy to figure out.
And every novel that in the old days, that there was somebody that got poisoned with arsenic. Okay, so I want to read to here, Kathy, let's see if you have any question. If you're gluten-free and cannot eat rice, then what? What is safe to eat?
Right, there are a lot of other grains you can use. And you have buckwheat, quinoa. There are a number of others you can use.
Yeah, and of course you're saying you don't have to eliminate rice altogether, but we have an option. We can look at the label, see that it's been tested for arsenic. And now I've heard of people say, if you soak the rice and you boil it and you soak it for a long period of time, you dump the water, put water back in, that somehow the arsenic comes out. Is that true?
Yes, that's true. So when you wash the rice a lot, you are getting rid of the arsenic. Okay, that's the good news. But the bad news is that
washing a lot? What is wash a lot?
So there's protocols in my book, and there's easy to find protocols online.
That's right.
Okay, so I recommend doing that because it shows you the kind of the benefits for how many times you rinse it, how much the arsenic goes down. But I also realize the more you rinse the rice, the more you soak the rice, it's not just the arsenic coming out, and you're going to lose your trace minerals as well. So there's kind of a give and take here. You're better off not having arsenic in your rice to begin with.
Okay. And get your trace minerals in another way. Okay. Well, anything else that we can talk about with arsenic?
Sure.
Well, because, arsenic is I did a little bit of research. It's in rock, soil, and air. It's like, you can't stop breathing. So it's like, okay.
In general, we don't get a lot of arsenic from the air unless you happen to be near some kind of an industry that's releasing arsenic into the air. Actually, that happened to one of my employees. I was working in Portland, and there was upwind from her a colored glass manufacturer that was using arsenic and cadmium compounds, and they're getting this into the air in downtown Portland. It was just a big surprise and quite stunning. But in general, most of the arsenic is coming from the water, rice, and chicken.
Okay.
Now, one other area, actually, this is for children. If you have old climbing toys, the old preserved wood climbing toys, they typically use arsenic compounds in them. So
because they're pressure washed, pressure treated wood.
Old pressure treated wood use arsenical compounds. So the kids crawling around on them are picking up arsenic.
And those are the things that we don't know. And then once you do know it, it's like, okay, let's put plastic in there. But well, plastic's not good either. So, we want our kids to play, but we just need to be very wise about this. And speaking of wisdom, I just wanted to point out, I want to thank all of you who are part of the broadcast, our teachers' pets that come on in the classroom. And I just want to encourage you to help me grow the class even more. I want you to please consider subscribing to whenyouneedafriend.com. Whenyouneedafriend.com, all the shows, whether they were good, bad, ugly, whatever, from the moment we started, are all stored in the library at whenyouneedafriend.com. Also, we have lots of information so that you can take responsibility. It's ownership. Again, we can't rely on anybody making these decisions for us because they're looking at their profit line. And if they can just sneak it in there, they're not thinking about you're eating it every day, every meal. I grew up Spanish. I am Spanish. I grew up in a Spanish household, and we had rice and beans and rice all the time. And so that exposes us to different conditions. So I want to encourage you to take your health back. And this is a great way to take your health back, which is, to get this book. And when you're looking at the toxicity in our body. And so go to whenyouneedafriend.com, not only become a subscriber, but go in there and play around, because we have the social media, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And so you can subscribe at YouTube, and the shows get sent to you when you subscribe, and you like and share and follow. That way you help out grow. Now, there is something that I just absolutely love. And I told Dr. Pizzorno, we always need to stop and thank our sponsors, because without our sponsors, this show, this classroom would not be here available for you free. This is information that you can have at your disposal at any time once the class is recorded and posted. But here's the thing that I want you to look at. When you press the button sponsors, there are so many sponsors that are standing next to me and saying, I want to be a part of this message. Sponsors like Liberty Health Share and Keep Me Safe Organics, which, one of the things in Dr. Pizzorno's book, we talk about toxic in makeup and beauty products, and you can get 10% off your entire purchase with Keep Me Safe Organics. And they're constantly looking at things that are, they only use products that are organic, non-synthetic, and pesticide free, and they are bunny safe. I think that's the so no cruelty to animals. And so when you go on there, you can get the products, and those are the beauty products. The only things that touch my skin, beauty products, other than my husband, is Keep Me Safe Organics. So this is a wonderful place that you can get it for 10% off your entire purchase, and that's my gift to you. And there's First Alternative Care. They're standing next to us saying, okay, we want to be a part of a change in the way we do our health care. Very affordable for the entire household. You get non-urgent family practice, dermatology, and this is 24/7. And for 3 hours a year, you get behavioral health counseling, all in the privacy of your own home for your entire household for $45. So you need to check them out, because a household can be a guest visiting your home, or a child who is away in college. So check them out. And then Dr. Stephen Grable, he's going to be here tomorrow. He is a functional, alternative, complementary. He's just a wonderful doctor. He's my doctor in Jacksonville Beach, but worth the trip. And so he's also a sponsor. The pharmacy in Merritt Island, they're doing things differently with compounds so that you don't have to take the medications that we now hear could have lead in them. And not orally. You could put it topically on your skin as well. And then Live Longer Medical, who's helping you look as good on the inside. And they do the bioidentical hormones, which we just learned today that is good for our bones. I'm going to sign up for that right after the right after the class. But with, I forgot to mention, with the pharmacy, you mentioned Lily sent you get 20% off your purchase, your first purchase. Now, those are different ways that we can support our sponsors, because that's how they're supporting us. But there's one more way that you can support. You can become an enrolled student, and as an enrolled student, you can donate to the class. And so help us grow time, talent, treasure, spread the good word. Today, we're talking about how we can take our health back by looking at our body's toxicity, which could be the difference between being healthy or getting a disease like diabetes or other things like you had mentioned, Dr. Pizzorno. But I remember the first time I actually met you physically was I was at the IFM. You were one of the guest speakers, and I was there. Actually, no, there was one the week before. I met you there as well. And one of the things that was Bob Roundtree, he had come on the Roundtree came on the show, and he said in the IFM conference that it's not our body. Autoimmune conditions is not our body turning against our organs and just destroying our organs. It's our body doing exactly what it needs to do because it's trying to help heal the modified body, because it now has toxins stored in our organs. Would you like to share a little bit about that?
Sure. So first off, I'd like to ask you to change your language a little bit.
Okay.
I hate the term alternative medicine.
Alternative.
Yeah. One or the other.
Yeah.
We need both medicines. Conventional medicine works great in some areas.
Yes.
Natural medicine works great in some areas. What we need is good medicine.
Good medicine. Okay. I love it.
So, Bob's right on.
Yes.
Two researchers, I don't know if you've talked with them, Detox and Risto Vijani. So Detox is a chiropractor specialized in neurological disease, and Risto is a PhD laboratory fellow.
Okay.
They've gone into a laboratory and they've determined, looking at autoimmune disease, that the body is not reacting to the normal tissues, it's reacting to the enzymes and proteins that have been bound to metals and chemicals and are now abnormal. Mm-hmm. So the body's doing its job to get rid of all that abnormal stuff.
That's right. That's right.
But you keep exposing yourself to toxins, you keep loading your tissues with all this abnormal stuff, and so the body's going to keep reacting to it. Well, let me give you an anecdote. Mm-hmm. So last March, I was lecturing at the Minneapolis Holistic Medical Association. I was given my latest talk on environmental toxins and how they cause disease. After I gave my lecture, a woman came up to me in her late 60s, a medical doctor, and said, I've been suffering from systemic lupus erythematosus. So when I heard your lecture 2 years ago, I decided to follow your protocol. 2 years later, I'm now in 95% remission.
Wow.
Yeah. Incurable disease gets progressively worse, uses more and more drugs. Instead, she detoxified and now doesn't need the drugs because she's dealt with the cause of why she had the autoimmune disease. Very, very encouraging.
And your protocol is in the Toxin Solution. Would you like to give a little bit of a quick idea of your protocol?
Thank you. So, I've been doing this medicine now for half a century. Mm-hmm. So I've had, a lot of patients. I've read a lot of research, and I've had a good opportunity to see, what works and what doesn't work. And not only that, but I guess I'll have to say this as frankly as I can, how hard can I push my patients? Okay. Yeah. So I say, here's what I want you to do, but maybe that's too much. How about if we just do this much? Okay. So it's basically a 9-week program, and that the last week can be repeated multiple times. The first 2 weeks, I simply say to people, let's look at where these toxins are coming from, and you start learning how to avoid the toxins. Because no point in the tox program, you keep putting the stuff back in your body.
Yes.
So 2 weeks, let's do stop the toxins. Then 2 weeks, cleaning up the gut. Because it turns out people have such unhealthy guts. They have wrong bacteria in their guts. They have leaky gut syndrome. It's taking all these toxins in from the gut. And what most people don't realize is that the blood does not go to the heart first from the gut. it goes to the liver first, so the liver can clean up what's in there, and then it goes to the heart. So if your liver is being overloaded with toxins from the gut, it has trouble getting rid of toxins from that you're being exposed to in the environment. Spend 2 weeks getting the gut cleaned up, and then we spend 2 weeks, I hate to say it, but we spend 2 weeks in making the liver work better, because there's lots of nutrients you can do to get the liver working better, cholagogues you can do to kind of clear out the garbage that's stuck in the gallbladder and the liver. Then we do something that's actually new, I didn't used to do 50 years ago. We spend 2 weeks fixing people's kidneys. We have an epidemic of kidney failure that we've never seen before, because now all these environmental toxins, big load in the kidneys, and many of the common prescription drugs, both prescription and over-the-counter, like, for example, acetaminophen and things of this nature, they damage the kidneys. So now we spend 2 weeks getting the kidneys working properly. I tell people, don't go on a detox program until your organs of elimination are working properly, because if you release toxins before your body's ready to get rid of them, you can make yourself transiently worse. So clean up the gut, clean up the liver, clean up the kidneys, and now we can do a detox program. So I say, here's a week-long program, which is basically a combination of primarily mild caloric restriction, nutrition to alkalinize the body, because when we alkalize the cells, when we alkalize the kidneys, you get rid of toxins, and then saunas. Because when you're sweating profusely, and that sweat is full of toxins.
Wow, that's great. And that is in the Toxin Solution. And I we gave away books last time, but this time we're not. So you're going to have to get it you could get it on Amazon. You can actually click on the link and you should be able to find it on my webpage as well. Okay, so before we move on, or before we continue talking about, fluoride, I would love, actually, maybe I'll just a reminder. I would love for you to be able to share some stories, other stories as well, of people that have come to you, because that's like our currency, It's like right. You're doing something, you're helping people, but when people come back to you and say, oh, this is where, my life has changed. And so arsenic, have you heard anybody share any stories that they knew they had arsenic toxicity and all of a sudden made a little few tweaks and now they're feeling better?
So the stories I've heard from people is they had XYZ disease. They followed my protocol just to get rid of toxins, ignoring what the toxin was, just get out of their body, and they got better. So many people don't have the money or resources to do all the testing for what toxins they have. They just said, yes, Dr. Pizzorno, you made a great case for it. I'm going to get rid of toxins. So for example, I got a letter from a person, and by the way, I'm calling this anecdotal because I haven't actually seen this person. I haven't done the before and after tests. I just have to trust what they told me, but why would they lie,
Yes.
So one guy said, I've had diabetes for 15 years. Saw my medical doctor, got drugs, went to my naturopath, got some benefit, not great, decided to read your book. Had diabetes for 15 years, went through a 9-week detox program, and my blood sugar control came back to normal, had no more diabetes.
Very
And for
good.
9 weeks. Yeah, it's pretty exciting. Now, it took the person with the systemic lupus erythematosus, took her 2 years, because sometimes the damage is really deep. Another person, and I said this many times in my book, when people come to me who have problems with weight, I don't put them on a weight loss program. I put them on a detoxification program.
Interesting.
So one woman who said, I've been going through all these yo-yo diets, can't get rid of the weight, always get back whatever I get rid of. Said, I'm just going to avoid toxins. I'm not going to worry about my diet other than eating healthy foods. Got rid of her weight without trying to. Because these toxins are called by the researchers diabetogens and obesogens. One of the things the body is doing, now this is theoretical, I can't quote your study, but it was suggested to me by a very smart friend of mine, and now researchers are saying the same thing. It could be one reason why the body gains weight is to dilute the toxins. Because many fat soluble. So when you put on extra fat, you're getting it out of the normal functioning tissues to put into fat cells that aren't particularly functioning as a way to protect yourself. So get rid of those toxins. Now the body doesn't have to protect itself with all the excess fat, gets rid of the excess fat. Quite interesting.
Interesting. Well, I don't know if Brooke shared this with you, but I just recently had my breast implants removed, and talk about toxicity. So it's like my body is, I'm 6 weeks out, and my body is kind of like going woo woo, because now it doesn't have that to deal with. And so I want to go through a toxicity program to just get rid of the toxins in my body, and hopefully can start healing 100%. So it's amazing the things that we think are safe, that people tell us are safe, but it's right there. All we have to do is do a little bit of tweaking, and our body will just say, thank you, I will return you back to health. It's amazing.
Yes, and let me add to that. It's people think, well, it's this toxin or it's that toxin. Yes, individual toxins have problems, but the big issue is total load. So everything you can do to decrease your load means the body can now take care of the other toxins. So get rid of the breast implants, okay? There's a toxic load there. It may not be obvious causing one particular thing, but what happens is that extra load makes you more susceptible to everything else.
Correct.
And also about our bodies, about 25% of the energy we produce every day is used by our bodies for detoxification. Not just detoxification of things in the environment, but within our own bodies, our normal metabolism produces toxins. So we have to get rid of them. So the more you have toxins, the more you're using up energy that could be used for other purposes.
Yes,
It's kind of this, it doesn't seem like a big change that you did, but the effects are much bigger than that what seems to be a small change.
Absolutely, absolutely. And even though I haven't gotten rid of all my symptoms, some have gotten better. And so now my body, I just need to tweak it back. I need to, figure out what my body needs now without all the toxic load that I've been giving it. And excuse the pun, the load. But but anyway, so let's move on to fluoride, because we got 5 minutes left. And so let's talk about fluoride and any stats that you can share about this water that, there's fluoride in our water. And so on. So let's talk about some statistics about fluoride.
Sure. So the big thing with fluoride is dosage. And if you look at the research, epidemiological research, looking at the amount of fluoride in water supplies, both natural and artificial, and where you start seeing disease associations, they all start at about 1 milligram per liter of water. So if your water supply is below 1 milligram, that's fine. But once you start getting above 1 milligram, then you start running into trouble. So, for example, around 3 to 5 milligrams, children's IQ decreases if they're drinking that water. You start seeing white spots on the teeth. You start seeing fluoride in the bone. Fluoride in the bone makes the bone more brittle. So again, where you decrease a child's IQ, well, there's no exact symptom. It's just that kids aren't as bright as they could be. And for the teeth, well, your teeth don't look quite right, or you're more susceptible to breaking your bones. It's one of those things where, as compared to mercury, where if you have high mercury levels, your brain gives you immediate symptoms. Most of those things is kind of these long-term effects that's just damaging people's health.
And it's so scary because I went to, in our community, they're trying to remove the fluoride from the water. And I went to an event, and just as many people that are there saying fluoride is bad for you. And here are all the testing, that the results. And then you have even 20, 30 people times more saying, oh, it's perfect, it's great. And, for me, if I want fluoride in my water, I'll add it to my water. Because
put your toothpaste.
Or my toothpaste, which I don't do either. And I make sure that when our grandchildren come over, they get fluoride-free toothpaste.
You have grandchildren?
Yes.
Wow,
yes.
You're doing something right, aren't you?
Thank you. But that's the thing, is that we don't even realize it because we've been indoctrinated. We've been programmed to think that fluoride is good for us. So what do we do? What can we do other than filter our water?
Well, it turns out fluoride is really hard to get rid of out of water. So both fluoride and arsenic are very difficult to get out of water. So if you have fluoride in your water supply, you're pretty much stuck with either getting a reverse osmosis or only drinking water bottled in glass, not plastic.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And so I've got the reverse osmosis, and we have it 10% off in our shop now at whenyouneedafriend.com. It's an over-the-counter. It's an over-the-counter reverse osmosis, zero installation. And that's what I use. And there's a lot. The bad thing about reverse osmosis is that it wastes a lot of water.
Yes, and it takes out all the minerals as well.
Yeah, but we can always add a little bit of salt or a little bit of minerals in there. Okay, so there's a question, and Gail, I think I'm going to ask the question after we finish, because we have 10 minutes after we finish the podcast. And for those of you who are listening on the podcast, you're welcome to join us at Facebook Live at Lillian's radio show, or watch the entire class on Facebook, on YouTube. So is there anything else that you would like to share about fluoride, and so that we can take our health back with that?
So I think fluoride, if you want to have children brush their teeth with some fluoride, that's probably okay, but not in the water.
Not in the water, because you're drinking it. It goes, we're going to talk a little bit more about the effects of fluoride in our water. Dr. Joe Pizzorno, it's amazing. I'm so glad that you were able to join us today. The book is called The Toxin Solution. Get it from your library or from Amazon, wherever. It's an important book to have. Thank you, Dr. Pizzorno. I really appreciate you. We're going to continue talking after. And please remember, we'll be right here waiting for you. This is Lillian McDermott and Dr. Joe Pizzorno wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever.
The
Good
opinions
job.
and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.
Okay, Gailey, I am going to read your question, and I'm going to try very hard to pronounce all these things well. Okay, so because I might have some fluoride in the brain or some like something, because these are really difficult words. Okay, so Gailey wants to know, when discussing fluoride, the hydrofluorosilicic acid, which is the waste product from the phosphate mining industry used by most municipal water providers, is typically contaminated with lead and arsenic. Can Dr. Pizzorno comment on the source of additional contamination for lead and arsenics? She said, thank you.
Yes, so there are many sources of lead and arsenic, and depends upon the area of the world people are living in, the house they're living in, things of this nature. So, for example, lead. Many of the water supplies in older houses, if the water becomes acidic or corrosive, will leach lead into the water supply. So I had a patient, for example, who had sudden loss of vision in her eye from acute lead toxicity, because the copper pipe that was carrying water from the shore to her houseboat had been replaced with solder that had lead in it. And she got such an acute lead poisoning that she lost vision when her eyes. The good news is, took her out of that environment, chelated the lead, and she got her vision back. So the point I'm trying to make there is, Flint, Michigan, everybody knows about Flint, Michigan, and the lead there. Flint, Michigan is one of only of thousands of water supplies that have been shown to put lead into the houses of people who live in that community. So the only way to be sure you're not being exposed is to get measured. That's the only way around it, because it could be, for example, something I did is, when I first came to Seattle, I decided to have a garden, put the garden right next to my house.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the house was painted with leaded paint. And so the leaded paint, of course, got sanded away. And where did that leaded paint end up? It ended up in my garden. So my garden was producing lead. So you have to think about it. Okay, I'm going to have a garden. Is it next to a house? Does the house have old-time paint before 1970s, the late 1970s? If it did, most likely there is lead in that soil. Mm-hmm. So you have to become a sleuth. You have to look at, what are all the ways in which your environment can become polluted?
Yes, yes. So for those of you who are the teacher's pet, you're still hanging on and you have any questions for Dr. Pizzorno, type a Q before your question. That way I'll know that you have a question for Dr. Pizzorno. This is very powerful information. And those are just 3. We talked about mercury at the beginning of the classroom. That's not even recorded on YouTube. And so people can join if you want to watch the video on Facebook Live. It's unedited. I don't edit. You guys, forgive all the things that happen, but it's a free show. So, but if you want to edit it, you're welcome to do that. But it's called the Toxin Solution. And what I love about this is that it gives us options. It gives us options so that we can empower ourselves. If we believe that we have some form of toxicity, because you talk more than just the 3 things that we talked about today, or 4 actually. We got
Well, let's talk about another one. How about PCBs?
Okay, let's talk about PCBs.
Okay.
Now we're getting into it. Okay, here we go.
So I've been invited to speak at the American College of Nutrition in November, and so I decided to say, okay, what are the worst toxins? Okay, and it turned out to be lead, arsenic, mercury, and PCBs. Okay, now PCBs, what are they? They're polychlorinated biphenyls. So this is, it might say, an industrial waste product. They were banned 40 years ago, but there are something called persistent organic pollutants, which means they were designed to be difficult to break down by biological systems. So it turns out, if you look at PCB levels in people, and you look at, well, what happens over as the age, you look at somebody age 70, their levels are 5 times as high as somebody age 20. So why is that? Because the half-life of the PCBs is 3 to 25 years.
Whoa.
To get rid of half of it takes you years. So you might say, well, okay, well, what kind of diseases do they cause? Well, women, do you have rheumatoid arthritis? About 20% of rheumatoid arthritis is due to PCBs. Do you have trouble with the thyroid? Turns out, I don't know what the percentage is because I haven't figured it out, but I'd say probably 10 to 15% of thyroid dysfunction due to PCBs. Wow. Where do PCBs come from? Primarily from farmed fish, because the fish are fed feed that's contaminated with PCBs. So I tell people, never eat farmed fish unless it's first been checked for PCBs.
Wow. Wow. You know, I don't eat farm fish. And I remember when that news broke out about farm versus wild caught, I was at my grocery store and I was about to buy some tilapia and it said farmed, and I all of a sudden became aware, oh, it says farmed on there. So I said, listen, I hear that farmed fish is not good for you. And the butcher said to me, he said, listen, we go through rigorous testing with all the products that we sell. If there was anything harmful, we wouldn't have it here. So I bought it. You know, we can't try, the people have an agenda. They have an agenda, and it's to sell whatever it is that they have. And so we've got to...
Yeah, the good news is tilapia, which is not as high in fat, doesn't store as much PCBs as, for example, Atlantic salmon, which is real high in fat, stores a lot of PCBs.
Wow.
So if you have to buy something of that nature, tilapia is actually one of the safer ones.
Oh, okay.
Having said that, right next to that was probably the Atlantic salmon, and that was definitely bad.
Yes,
or not
yes.
That, almost most likely bad.
And of course, whenever it's on sale, you want to get it, right? But no, it's not good for you. Just go with wild caught if you're going to go. But then you go and you see, if you see how our oceans are full of plastics, and you're now
most of which comes from China, by the way.
Yes, yes. And so it's like, well, maybe we shouldn't have any animal products. I'm just saying. So here we have a question from Kathy. Let's see. It says, what is the best whole house water filter system to put in your home? You know, I try not to give brands away unless I've tested it. And I don't know if Dr. Pizzorno feels that way as well, but we need to do your research. I mean, it's a, let's just say reverse osmosis. You said that's what gets rid of the fluoride the best?
Just about everything, but it's way more expensive. So what I prefer is people put a carbon block filter on the water supply coming into the house, because most of these organic toxins, you actually inhale them when you have a hot shower. So it's a big unit. It's like, it probably contains about, 20 gallons, I would say. It's really big. So all the water in the house gets cleared out. So that would, no, we're not getting any organic toxins. And it gets rid of everything except, and also has a metal precipitator with it. So it gets everything except arsenic and fluoride.
And so, it's like, and we're bathing in all this stuff. And then we put on perfume that has all the things, and we put on makeup or cleansers that have all the toxicity in there. So we need to become our own medical detective, our own MD, and take care of all these toxins, get rid of it, and also eat well, because, the things that have, the processed foods are full of toxins as well.
Absolutely.
So would you like to say anything about that?
Yeah. So I want to just finish the water part. So
Okay.
I'm fortunate living in Seattle because Seattle actually does test their water supply. We don't have arsenic here. But if you go south of Seattle, like 20 miles, there used to be something called the Arsenic smelter, which used to be smelting cadmium and arsenic. And so the whole area that is all saturated with all these toxins. You have to actually measure the water supply of where you're living to see how toxic it is.
Is there a way that we can measure it, for ourselves and make that decision? Like maybe ask the city, because by the time it gets through our pipes, does it change from when it's purified, and then they add all the fluoride and they add all the toxins in there, and then it comes through the pipes and it gets to our water filter, our tap water. What do you think of people who drink tap water in
Yeah,
restaurants?
I think they should test their water. Seriously, people should test the water, see what's in it. Most of the water supplies are fine, but the problem is not all the water supplies are fine. And also, if you're living on a farm and you have well water, or even if you have well water, you're not living on a farm, you must test your well water.
Yeah.
Because there's some well waters in the United States that have huge amounts of arsenic in them.
Okay, well, we have been warned. We have been warned. The Toxin Solution gives us solutions. It also has the detox that Dr. Pizzorno has authored, or what would you say, published, or what would you call it?
Written and
Tested. Written and published, tested, written and published, and helped many others. And you go around the world teaching people, and you're here today in the classroom being our teacher. So thank you so much, Dr. Pizzorno. I want to be sensitive to your schedule, and I am very grateful. So if you guys have any questions, you can type in a Q, write a question, and maybe the next time we have Dr. Pizzorno over, we can ask those as well. So thank you so much. And for those of you who are watching today, if you like this class and you want to share it, like it, follow us, subscribe, help us grow this information, the classroom, so that we can make an informed choice for our body. So thank you so much, Dr. Pizzorno. Last word, what would you like for it to be?
Our bodies have remarkable ability to heal and be healthy. We have to do everything we can to help them. That means eat real food and avoid toxins.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Dr. Pizzorno. Thank you, everybody, for coming into the classroom today. I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. Take care.